Hey guys, so I'm gonna be spending the rest of my night with me. So first, I'm about to do my auntie's lashes. Okay, these lashes are from Shein. Every time I start my videos, I just look a mess. Like, anyways, get ready with me to go to my granny's house for my auntie's birthday because Benihana's is gonna be cooking at the house for us. But I'm thinking like, like a little top, bang, little action. It's kind of cute. I'm not gonna lie. Hold on, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so this is the finished look. It's cute, I guess. It's something new, something I've never done. So the queen has arrived to the house. My dad's brand sweatshirt, some Adidas sweats, and some Uggs, and a Forever 21 little white purse. And yeah. Okay, this is the peasant in question.
Gutter ball. Imagine this. A teenager who lights up every room she enters. A social media star adored by millions suddenly vanishes from the world in an instant. But it's not just the loss that shocks us. It's how it happened. A car in a bustling parking lot. For passengers detained and yet no clear answers. How does a 17-year-old girl end up losing her life in such a tragic and violent way? Who was in that car and what were they hiding? Tonight, we unravel the mystery of Siyah's death. A story that has left an entire generation of fans heartbroken and desperate for answers. And by the end, you'll be left wondering, is this the whole story or just the beginning of something deeper? January 20th, 2025. What began as another day in the digital world turned into a nightmare that sent shockwaves across social media. Siyah, a 17-year-old TikTok sensation known for her joyful videos and infectious personality, was pronounced dead after a shooting at Los Cerritos shopping mall. Her name trended across platforms as fans flooded her accounts with condolences. But as the tributes poured in, so did the questions. Who would do this? Why was she targeted? And what really happened in the moments leading up to her death? Her last TikTok video, just days before the shooting, captured her doing what she did best, dancing, smiling, spreading joy. But was there something hidden in her final days that we missed? A cry for help, a warning? Or was this an attack no one could have foreseen? As we begin this journey, I need you to ask yourself, how does a young girl with so much potential end up shot in her car, surrounded by friends? Were these friends truly witnesses? Or were they something more? And why has the investigation struggled to piece together the truth? Could it be that someone is deliberately keeping the truth hidden? Stay with us as we uncover the facts, the rumors, and the mystery surrounding Siyah's death. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss the twists in this story because they'll leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. It's January 18th, 2025, a Saturday. Siyah drives to Los Cerritos shopping mall, a place she's been to countless times. It's a busy evening with families shopping and teens hanging out. But by nightfall, chaos erupts. Around 8:30 p.m., police are called to the scene. Siyah is found slumped in the driver's seat of her car, unresponsive. Paramedics rush her to the hospital, but her injuries are fatal. Witnesses describe a scene of panic. A group of teenagers in the car with Siyah, shouting for help. A nurse, who happened to be nearby, attempts CPR for over 10 minutes. But here's the thing. If there were so many people around, why doesn't anyone know what happened? Or do they? In the hours following her death, police detained 4 young men who had been inside the car with Siyah. But here's where things get complicated. They weren't arrested, and police have been tight-lipped about what they know. So what's the connection between these individuals and Siyah? Were they her friends, bystanders, or something else entirely? And if they were innocent, why did their behavior at the scene raise so many eyebrows? If you were the detectives in this case, what would you think? Would you believe the people in the car were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or do you think there's more to their story? Los Cerritos shopping mall has surveillance cameras everywhere. Yet, the footage from that night hasn't provided the breakthrough investigators hoped for. Police have also declined to comment on whether the weapon used in the shooting was found. So, here's the question we need to ask. Is this case stalled because there's no evidence, or is it stalled because the evidence doesn't add up? Meanwhile, social media detectives have been combing through Siyah's posts, her comments, her likes, looking for any sign of trouble. Some claim she seemed distant in her last few videos. Others argue there's no proof that she was in danger. What do you think? Can we read too much into someone's posts, or do they sometimes leave breadcrumbs we just don't see until it's too late? After Siyah's death, her final TikTok video became a makeshift memorial. Fans flooded the comments with messages of love, disbelief, and grief. "We'll miss you, Siyah," one wrote. Another asked the question on everyone's mind: how could this happen? But as the tributes continued, so did the speculation. Rumors began to spread. Was Siyah the victim of a targeted attack, or was this a random act of violence? Did the 4 detained individuals know more than they were letting on? And if this wasn't random, what was the motive? Revenge, jealousy, something else? By now, you've probably formed your own theories. So, I ask you, what stands out to you in this case? Could the detained individuals hold the key to the truth? Or are we looking at this from the wrong angle entirely? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, this is only the beginning. We're uncovering every layer of this story, and trust me, there are more questions than answers. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter in this investigation. Together, we'll search for the truth behind Siyah's untimely death. How does a 17-year-old girl with millions of followers, a bright future, and an unstoppable drive for success end up lifeless in her car on a Saturday night? What happens in the fleeting seconds before a single gunshot shatters everything? And who were the 4 young men in that car with her? Were they witnesses, friends, or something far more troubling? Siyah was a TikTok star, celebrated for her infectious smile and dance videos that brought light to millions around the world. But on January 18th, 2025, that light was extinguished in the parking lot of Los Cerritos shopping mall. She was found unresponsive in the driver's seat of her car. For people who were there with her, panicked and screaming for help. But when the police arrived, questions started swirling. Was this a tragic accident? Or was something far darker at play? What could lead to such a shocking act of violence in the middle of a crowded mall? And why haven't we gotten any clear answers from the people who were with her? Stay with us as we unravel the mystery behind Siyah's death. By the end of this story, you'll be left questioning everything you thought you knew about trust, loyalty, and what really happens behind closed doors. Siyah wasn't just another influencer on TikTok. She was a symbol of hope for her generation. Known for her handle at S1Ya_, she had millions of fans who adored her relatable content, dance routines, and bright personality. At just 17 years old, she had accomplished what many could only dream of, turning her passion into a platform that inspired and entertained people around the world. But as her followers mourned her loss, they couldn't help but wonder, what happened? How does someone so full of life suddenly become a victim of violence? Siyah's death didn't just shatter her family. It left an entire community of fans desperate for answers. Could this tragedy have been avoided? Was there something in her videos, her comments, her interactions that hinted at trouble beneath the surface? Or was this a senseless act that no one could have predicted? It was a typical Saturday evening at Los Cerritos shopping mall. Families shopped, couples strolled, and teenagers like Siyah spent time enjoying the weekend. But by 8:30 p.m., chaos erupted in the mall parking lot. Siyah's car became the center of attention as witnesses reported frantic screaming from the passengers inside. A nurse passing by stopped to perform CPR, but it was too late. What happened in the moments leading up to that gunshot? Who brought the weapon into the car? And why was it even there? Some witnesses claim they heard shouting before the gunshot, but no one has a clear answer about who pulled the trigger or why. For people were detained that night, but none have been charged. How is that possible? Were they innocent bystanders? Or are they hiding something? If you were in a car that night, would you tell the whole truth, or would fear keep you silent? The 4 young men who were in the car with Siyah that night hold the key to solving this mystery. But as police questioned them, their stories reportedly didn't line up. Each account painted a slightly different picture of what happened. Some claimed the gun went off accidentally. Others hinted at an argument escalating into tragedy. But with no clear consensus, one question remained. Who is lying? Imagine yourself in their position. If you were innocent, wouldn't you do everything in your power to tell the truth? So, why the contradictions? Why the hesitation? Could it be fear or guilt? And here's something even more unsettling. Could one of these boys have planned it all along? As news of Siyah's death spread, social media erupted in a mix of grief, outrage, and speculation. Her last TikTok video, posted just days before her death, became a virtual shrine, with fans flooding the comments with messages like, "We'll miss you," and "How could this happen to someone so full of life?" But among the tributes, darker questions emerged. Some users claimed there were warning signs in her recent posts, subtle shifts in her demeanor, cryptic captions that seemed out of character. Others speculated about the 4 young men detained that night. Who were they? Were they friends? Enemies? Or something far more complicated? Was the answer to Siyah's death hiding in plain sight? Or was it buried beneath a web of secrets that no one had the courage to unravel? Police confirmed they had recovered a firearm from the vehicle that night, but the mystery only deepened from there. None of the 4 detained individuals claimed ownership of the gun. Forensic testing was underway, but without a confession, investigators were left piecing together a puzzle with missing pieces. Who brought the gun into the car? Was it meant for protection, or was it always intended to harm? And if no one in the car owned up to it, could there be a 5th person involved, someone who had already fled the scene? Siyah's family and friends remembered her as a beacon of positivity. She had a way of making everyone feel seen and valued, both online and in real life. Her parents described her as a bright, ambitious girl who was just beginning to discover her potential. But as they mourned, they couldn't help but ask the same questions the world was asking. What went wrong? Was Siyah in trouble and no one noticed? Or was this a random act of violence that no one could have prevented? Her parents pleaded for anyone with information to come forward, desperate for answers that might bring them even the smallest measure of closure. Siyah's death reignited debates about the pressures of social media and the hidden dangers influencers face. TikTok had briefly been banned just weeks earlier, and some speculated that the stress of uncertainty may have played a role in her life during those final weeks. But could social media itself have been a factor in her death? Did her online fame attract jealousy, resentment, or even danger? And if so, how can we protect those who inspire us online from the threats they may face offline? This is only the beginning of Siyah's story. Each story reveals more twists, more questions, and more heartbreak. Who was Siyah really? What happened in the moments leading up to her death? And who is responsible for ending her life so senselessly? Stay with us as we uncover every piece of this tragic puzzle. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss the next chapter of this heart-wrenching story. Because the truth is out there, and it's only a matter of time before it comes to light. The Los Cerritos shopping mall, normally a bustling hub of life and energy, became the site of something far darker on January 18th, 2025. Witnesses described the eerie contrast of a typical Saturday night. Families shopping, friends laughing, against the sudden chaos that erupted near Siyah's car. The sound of a gunshot, followed by frantic screams, brought the area to a standstill. A nurse on the scene performed CPR, but it was too late. Siyah's lifeless body was pulled from the car, and 4 young men were detained shortly after. But what no one could understand was why none of them seemed willing or able to explain what had happened. What kind of secrets were hidden in that car? What if the parking lot wasn't just the setting of this tragedy, but also the key to understanding it? Surveillance cameras covered the area, but no footage has been released to the public. Was there something so damning on the tapes that authorities decided to keep it under wraps? Or was the truth simply too complicated to untangle? Who are these 4 young men? All we know for sure is that they were in the car with Siyah when the gun went off. But beyond that, every detail is shrouded in mystery. Police have not released their names, and their connection to Siyah remains unclear. Were they her friends, her followers, or something else entirely? Their accounts of what happened that night were inconsistent. According to sources close to the investigation, some claimed the gun discharged accidentally, while others hinted at a disagreement escalating into violence. But if that's the case, why hasn't anyone come forward with the full story? What would you do if you were in their position? If you were innocent, wouldn't you fight to clear your name? And if you weren't, how far would you go to cover the truth? The firearm recovered from the scene has become a crucial piece of evidence. Ballistic tests were ordered, but the results have not been made public. Police believe it could hold the answers to what really happened in Siyah's final moments. But here's the problem. No one in the car admitted to owning the gun. So, where did it come from? Was it brought intentionally, or was it already there, waiting for the wrong moment? If the weapon didn't belong to anyone in the car, could this mean someone else was involved? Someone who fled before police arrived? If you were the detective, where would you begin? And what would you fear to find? As the investigation unfolded, the internet became a breeding ground for speculation. TikTok, the platform that made Siyah famous, became a focal point for discussions about her life and death. Some fans theorized that her fame might have attracted unwanted attention, jealousy, obsession, or even danger. Did Siyah have enemies? Was she being followed or targeted because of her online presence? Or was this a tragic coincidence that had nothing to do with her fame? As fans dissected her posts for clues, the line between reality and speculation began to blur. If you were famous online, would you ever feel truly safe? In her last TikTok video, Siyah danced to a trending song, her energy and joy shining through as always. But looking back now, some fans claim they noticed something different. Was her smile a little forced? Was there something she wasn't saying? This video, now a memorial to her life, has been viewed millions of times. Fans have analyzed every second, searching for signs that something was wrong. But here's the question. Are they seeing what's really there, or are they projecting their own fears onto a tragedy no one could have foreseen? If you watch that video, what would you see? A happy teenager enjoying her life, or a cry for help that went unanswered? As the days passed, the online reaction to Siyah's death became more polarized. While many fans focused on celebrating her life and calling for justice, others began spreading rumors and unverified claims. Some accused the four detained individuals of hiding the truth, while others questioned whether police were withholding key evidence. This division only made the investigation more challenging. Misinformation spread like wildfire, making it harder for authorities to separate fact from fiction. But here's the question. Could the chaos of social media be helping someone cover their tracks? And if so, who stands to gain the most from the confusion? Siyah's family has been vocal in their grief, but they've also remained steadfast in their demand for answers. Her mother, a woman described by friends as fiercely protective, has called for anyone with information to come forward. She was just a kid, her mother said in an emotional interview. She had her whole life ahead of her. Someone knows what happened, and they need to do the right thing. But as the investigation dragged on, the family began to wonder, was this case being handled properly? Or was it at risk of being forgotten? Just another unsolved tragedy in a sea of headlines? The identities of the four young men detained that night remain a closely guarded secret. Police have only described them as individuals of interest, but that hasn't stopped the public from speculating. Were they friends of Siyah, or strangers who crossed her path at the wrong time? Could one of them have been responsible for her death? Or were they all innocent bystanders caught up in a nightmare they didn't understand? Imagine being in their position. If you were innocent, how would you prove it? And if you weren't, how would you hide the truth? The Los Cerritos shopping mall is equipped with dozens of surveillance cameras, yet no footage from the night of Siyah's death has been released to the public. Why? Was the footage inconclusive, or did it capture something investigators don't want us to see? Could it show the gunshot itself, or perhaps someone fleeing the scene? If the footage exists, what kind of answers could it hold? And if it doesn't, What does that say about the kind of justice Siyah's family can expect? As the investigation continued, some began questioning the impact of Siyah's fame on her life and her death. Did her millions of followers shield her from danger, or did they make her a target? Fame has a way of magnifying everything, both the good and the bad. Could Siyah's online presence have attracted someone who meant her harm? Or was this tragedy completely unrelated to her success? If you were in Siyah's shoes, would you ever feel safe knowing millions of strangers had access to your life? Why haven't the four young men in the car with Siyah told the full story of what happened that night? Their silence has created a vacuum of answers that has been filled with speculation, rumors, and outright lies. But what if their silence isn't by choice? What if there's a force, fear, guilt, or loyalty, binding them together and keeping the truth buried? Imagine this. You're in a car with someone when tragedy strikes. Do you speak up, knowing it could mean betraying someone close to you? Or do you stay quiet, hoping that silence will protect you? And here's the real question. If they're not talking, who are they protecting? Could it be themselves, each other, or someone else entirely? Piecing together Siyah's final hours has proven to be a challenge for investigators. Surveillance footage, witness testimonies, and the accounts of the detained individuals paint a timeline riddled with gaps and inconsistencies. Where was Siyah before she arrived at the mall? Did she meet someone there, or was her destination always the car? And why did the gunshot happen when it did? What triggered the violence in that moment? For detectives, timelines are everything. The answer to what happened often lies in the seemingly minor details. Small moments that, when connected, tell the story of a life lost. But in this case, the gaps feel deliberate, as if someone has gone out of their way to blur the truth. If you were in charge of this investigation, where would you look first? One of the most perplexing aspects of this case is the relationship between Siyah and the four detained individuals. Were they longtime friends, acquaintances, or strangers? Were they people she trusted, or did she feel uneasy in their presence? The people closest to Siyah describe her as kind, trusting, and friendly, a young woman who saw the best in others. But could that kindness have been her undoing? Did she misplace her trust in someone who didn't have her best interests at heart? If you were Siyah, would you have recognized the danger? Or would it have been too late by the time you realized something was wrong? The mall parking lot wasn't empty that night. It was a Saturday, and the area was bustling with activity. So why hasn't more information come from witnesses? The nurse who performed CPR described a chaotic scene. A group of young people screaming, a girl lifeless in the driver's seat. But beyond her testimony, few others have come forward. Could it be that no one saw anything? Or is it possible that those who did see are too afraid to speak? And what about the possibility of other passengers? The four detained individuals aren't the only ones who could know what happened. Is there someone else out there who holds the key to unlocking this mystery? For Siyah's mother, the pain of losing her daughter is compounded by the lack of answers. "She was my baby," she told reporters. "She brought joy to so many people, and now she's gone. How can that happen and no one knows why?" Her mother has described Siyah as a girl with big dreams, someone who wanted to make people happy and leave a positive mark on the world. Now, her mother is left with a hole in her heart and 1,000 questions that no one seems willing or able to answer. Imagine being in her shoes. How do you grieve when every day brings new uncertainties about what really happened to your child? Ballistic tests on the firearm recovered from the scene are still pending, leaving yet another critical piece of the puzzle unresolved. Investigators hope the results will reveal who handled the weapon and when. But even if the tests point to a specific individual, the question remains, why was the gun there in the first place? Was it brought for protection, intimidation, or something far more sinister? Here's a chilling thought. If someone in that car knew the gun was there, did they also know it would be used? Siyah's death has reignited debates about the pressures and dangers of online fame. For a 17-year-old girl, managing millions of followers and constant attention would have been both exhilarating and overwhelming. Did her fame make her a target? Was someone jealous of her success? Or did her large online presence simply put her in the wrong place at the wrong time? If you were in Siyah's position, would you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders? And would you ever suspect that the thing bringing you joy could also bring you harm? Fans and amateur sleuths have taken to social media to try and solve the mystery of Siyah's death. Under the hashtag Justice for Siyah, users have analyzed her last posts, tracked her movements, and speculated on the motives of those involved. But as helpful as these efforts can be, they also raise a troubling question. Are these armchair detectives helping or hurting the investigation? Could their speculation cloud the truth? Or are they uncovering details that authorities have overlooked? If you found a clue in someone's TikTok or Instagram post, would you share it? Or would you fear making things worse? Detectives are trained to look for the unexpected. Clues that don't seem significant at first glance, but ultimately change everything. In Siyah's case, investigators have reportedly found several such clues, though they have not revealed what they are. Could these details point to a motive, a suspect, or a completely new angle no one has considered? And if these clues exist, why hasn't anyone been charged yet? Weeks have passed since Siyah's death, and the case appears to be stalling. No arrests have been made, and no new information has been released. For her family, friends, and fans, the silence is unbearable. What happens when a case like this grows cold? Do we lose hope of ever finding justice, or do we keep fighting, no matter how long it takes? As we near the end of this story, the most haunting questions remain unanswered. Who pulled the trigger? Why was Siyah in that car? What role did the four detained individuals play? And will we ever truly know what happened in those final moments? Siyah's story is far from over. Her family continues to fight for answers. Her fans continue to demand justice. And investigators are still working to piece together the truth. If you have any information about what happened to Siyah, please come forward. The smallest detail could make the biggest difference. And remember, this isn't just a story about a tragedy. It's a story about the search for truth and justice. Don't let Siyah's memory fade. Subscribe, share, and join the conversation. Because this story isn't over, and we all have a role to play in finding the answers.